Hari Om. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Department of Commerce, I take great pleasure to welcome our beloved Principal Sir, Major Dr. I. Baburathanan, respected staff members, and my dear students to our today's webinar on the topic Role of Logistics, a Global Perspective. I would like to extend a special welcome to our today's guest, Mr.V.C.Kannan, sir, Director, Vistas Shipping Services Private Limited. Now, I request Ms. Abhinaya, Assistant Professor, Department of Visual Communication, to give brief introduction about Avichi College of Arts and Science.
Thank you, ma'am. A very pleasant good morning to one and all present here. We are pleased to present this webinar session today for you. Before moving on to the session, I would like to give a brief intro about our college. Avichi College of Arts and Science is a co-educational institution affiliated to the University of Madras and managed by the ABM Rajeshwari Educational Trust. Our college offers undergraduate programs like BCom General, Accounting and Finance, Bank Management, Corporate Secretaryship, BSc Visual Communication, BSc Computer Science, and BCA. Our motto is to make from nobody to somebody. Being the pioneers in the field of education, Avichi provides the best for its students. What can one experience in Avichi? A multicultural campus, excellent infrastructure and facilities, congenial learning atmosphere, UGC qualified faculty with industry experience, active sports, NSS, RRC, and other extracurricular clubs. The novel program of Avichi College is the Avichi Mentorship Program, wherein the students get an opportunity to get trained by the stalwarts of the industry. Special training programs to enhance the spoken English skills of our students. With all these training programs, we were able to achieve. Our first year students were able to complete their internship at IIT Madras and the Hindu in the very first year of their study. State-of-the-art studios and laboratories, well-furnished gallery-type classrooms, highly equipped library, regular industrial and field visit, and we are located near the bus terminus of Vadapani. You can stay connected with us through Facebook, facebook.com/Avichi College, or log on to our website, avichicollege.edu.in. For admission-related queries, you can write to admissions@avichicollege.edu.in. Learn from the pioneers, come and experience the legacy of being an Avichian. Today's program is about the role of logistics in global perspective, presented by Mr. V.C.Kannan, Director, Vistas Shipping Service Private Limited. To introduce our guest for today, I now invite Dr. Rajalakshmi, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce.
It's my pleasure and honor to introduce our today's presenter, Mr. V.C.Kannan. Mr. V.C.Kannan is the Director of Vistas Shipping Services Private Limited, an integrated logistics service provider which is engaged in serving the needs of importers and exporters of goods from and to all parts of the world. The company is a licensed custom house agent and undertakes custom clearance, air freight, sea freight, cargo movement by air and sea, packing, warehousing, and transportation by road. Mr. Kannan has a bachelor degree in science, a PG diploma in foreign trade, and PG diploma in management from Madras University. He is professionally qualified as a customs broker, IATA air cargo agent, and he is a life member and expert committee member of the Hindustan Chamber of Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport and MM. With over 30 years in this field, he has the experience of handling all types of import and export goods for a variety of clients, including multinationals, large projects, highly sensitive and valuable electronic and medical equipment, perishable cargo, etc. As a logistics and international trade professional, he has knowledge of most aspects of international trade and consults with importers and exporters in optimizing their businesses. In this webinar, Mr. Kannan will give a brief outline of the developments in global trade and the role of logistics or supply chain professional in international trade and also the factors, skills, and competencies required for this vital sector of the global economy. Now, I request Major Dr. I. Baburatnam, Principal, Avichi College of Arts and Science, to address.
Thank you, madam. Once again, I extend a warm welcome to V.C.Kannan, sir. So this is a kind of program we are extending to our students during this period. I think we have chosen a very right person, Mr. V.C.Kannan, to give a talk on the role of logistic and global perspective. So the word logistic may be a new terminology, but the concept was there right from beginning when the business start evolved. It's all about how the products from manufactured one corner reaches the ultimate consumer in other corner of the nation or the world. There are so many links are involved in the process. It is required at this juncture, probably during this lockdown period. We are all confined to home, but still we could able to get many of our requirements through the logistic process only. So I think Mr. Kannan will be highlighting more about the process, the scope, importance for the logistic. So with this again a few introduction, I once again extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Kannan and because the management, members of the staff, and students of Avichi College. We're having the pleasure of introducing Mr. Kannan, and we invite Mr. Kannan to present a role of logistic global at perspective. Thank you. Over to Kannan, sir. Please, you can proceed, sir.
Good morning, everybody. At the outset, I wish to thank the management, the principal, the head of Department of Commerce, and staff of that department, as well as the Department of Visual Communication, for arranging this webinar, which I'm very happy to share with you the experiences and knowledge which I have gained over the years, apart from the qualifications which I have. International trade, as you all know, in the current scenario is a much talked about topic, especially over the last 6 months or more since the COVID-19 outbreak, and more recently with regard to the problem at our borders, the dependence and interactions with international countries, with other countries of the world has come into focus. The government is also doing a lot to, and you have heard the Prime Minister also say recently, there are a lot of changes in the offing. The ministry is also working on these lines. However, let me go ahead with the technical aspects of the logistics industry with regard to international trade, and then we will come to the current scenario a little later on. Can we start the presentation? So all of you are aware of the terms in which we talk about as international trade. What is international trade? So we will go through, these are the basic contents of this webinar. What is international trade? The key differences between domestic and international trade, why international trade is essential and what are the benefits we get out of it, what are the current trends. And then comes the critical part of which we are actually talking about now is the role of logistics in international trade, its components, and the roles of different agencies involved in this process. So what is international trade? So exchange of capital, goods, and services across international borders, which involves the activities of the government as well as individuals. Individuals meaning companies or even individuals who engage in trade with other countries. All of us know that for many, many centuries, India has been a big trading hub, right from the ancient times when we had the traditional, even the South Indian kingdoms, the Cheras, Cholas, Pandyas having trade with the Far East countries in Thailand or Vietnam or other countries of the world. Similarly, we had the Western traders from Portugal and Spain and France trading with our country. So this has developed over the years, keeping in mind the advantages of having a robust, strong international trade. So this international trade depends a significant share of the gross domestic product of a country. Close to 50 to 60% of the GDP of any economy is dependent on trade with other countries. So international trade is broadly, you can say, as two things. One is exports, whatever goods and services that are produced in one country are sold to buyers in another. Import is another, or is about goods and services which are made or produced in another country and is imported into our country. So both of these together constitute international trade. For any country or any economy, a good balance of trade is vital. We should not be overly dependent on imports, putting all our dependence on any other country for our essential needs. And similarly, we should not have an overflow of exports which will hamper our economy. So our country's economic policy and the government ensures that we have a balanced economy. Perhaps a good trade surplus is beneficial in some ways, but overall a minimum differential. So there's an average equality between our exports and imports is ideal in this situation. So then we see that now we have to see the differences between the domestic and international trade. So if we go by factors, so we have the factors of production, which is land, labor, capital, and manpower. In domestic trade, these are free to move from one state to another within the country. As you all know, we as a large country, agriculture produce, machinery, consumer goods are made in various parts of the country, which has their own intrinsic advantages. Agriculture produce, wheat and things like that are grown in Punjab or North India, vegetables are grown there, we get them here. From here, we manufacture cars and engineering goods, which Chennai and Tamil Nadu is famous for, garments, textiles, which are sent to other parts of the country. Here, if you can see, there is a free movement between the states of the origin and the destination. Whereas in international trade, there is a lot of restrictions. First of all, we have to cross oceans, overseas, long distances, and each have different cultures, which you can see the second point. That are restricted due to complicated customs procedures and tariff barriers and trade barriers. So trade barriers are tariff or non-tariff, like customs duties are imposed on goods which you import, or the other country will impose some restriction on goods which you produce. So there is a restriction in this movement. We have to overcome these restrictions to ensure that the free movement is taking place. Next slide, please. So monetary transactions, if you see within the domestic industry or within the country, it is all transacted within the same country, within the same currency, which is Indian rupees. So you buy something from Delhi or Punjab or from Kerala, you pay in rupees. Whereas if you deal with other countries in international trade, you have different currencies involved, which creates its own set of issues, which is a separate topic to discuss by itself. How do you transact with a country in Japan, or an importer or an import from China, or an import from Africa? In what currency do you pay him? Will he accept rupees? Will he accept dollars? How do you get the dollars to pay him? So these are all different aspects which you need to consider when you are doing international trade because of the currency differential. However, there is another factor of the markets. So in a domestic economy, the markets are limited in size. You know that this is your geographical area to which you can supply and which is restricted in nature. However, in international trade, the whole world is your market. Your products can be sold in any country, anywhere in the world, which increases the capacity of your business, which increases the capacity of the sales of your products, whether it's agriculture, finished goods, and services too. Communication, of course, now with the internet and WhatsApp and all these electronic media, communication per se, technical communication per se, is not much of a challenge. But still, we have the barriers of language and culture and time differences. So if we negotiate with some company today, this is morning for us. By now, it is already evening or night for Australia. And in the US, they have not yet woken up and come to office. So we have this time differential. We have currency differential. We have language barriers. Communication, though mostly happens in English, what you say may not be easily understood by the other person. They may interpret it in a different way. Cultural barriers. Certain things are unsaid or very well said in our domestic transaction. In other countries or with other nations, you need to communicate in a different way because of their own cultural differences. So we see now the benefits of international trade, as I said earlier and briefly. So international trade allows countries and us to participate in a global economy. So our sales or our produce is not restricted to one particular geographic region of our country alone, which in turn increases efficiency, which means we can mass produce goods which can be sold easier, which are much more in demand. Anything including manufactured goods to handicrafts, your vegetables or traditional drugs like Ayurvedic products are very much in demand, not just in India. So the whole world is our market. So we have a wider supplier market. So if you see this graph here, you see that you get cheaper goods and services, which means you get a greater variety, which makes for more jobs and employment, increased economic growth, which again leads to cheaper goods and services. Major factor in the economy of a country, and you are also able to utilize or make use of much more products and essential goods which are available in other countries for your own benefit. So this kind of a cyclical factor of the gains and benefits of international trade will continue to boost, will continue to grow. So it's a cyclical nature. At no point in time can it say that no, I will not take anything from this country. I don't want any export. I don't want to do import. It's not possible. This has to go on because that's the way the economy is progressing and will continue to progress. Benefits far outweigh the small disadvantages which may have, and the future is going to be in international trade alone. Next slide, please. So here we see the current trends in international trade. As you can see, over the years, the volume of trade in goods is going up exponentially. There may be a slight flattening or slight dips in certain circumstances, but overall it is going up. The same with the volumes with regard to major economies. If you see, we have China and United States and the European Union, from developed countries and developing countries. The graph is just going up. This situation right now with regard to Corona and the China issue, maybe a small dip or maybe a small flattening of the curve here. But the overall trend will be that it will continue to grow and continue to keep growing, as you can see from the exponential growth of this graph in both the cases. Next. So here again we have shown about exports and imports of goods and export and import of services from different countries and different blocks, trading blocks, which are developed economies, developing economy. So again, you can see over the years from 2005, 2017, 18, it is always progressing. So there is no scope or no reason for international trade or volume to reduce in the near future or in the many years to come. Next slide. So here again we see the market share. So we are, of course, certain areas we have higher this thing, but if you can see goods related services and the volumes are also increasing over the years. So now we come to the key factor and the main purpose of this webinar. What is logistics? We have seen that international goods have to be moved across borders, across oceans, across the air, across the seas. What does this involve? So this gives you a small infographic. We have down below physical movement. So there is a manufacturer, then you have to move it to the port or the seaport or the airport. From there it comes to the import center, and from there to the distribution center, and then to the customer. So this is how the physical movement of the goods will take place. And on the other hand, there is the financial and data movement across these people. So each one has to be involved in both physical movement as well as data movement in terms of currency, order processing, feedback, so many issues with regard to actually moving the goods from one end to the other. Next. So this is briefly what logistics is all about. Whatever goods are produced, it can be a manufacturer, it can be an agriculture, it can be a handicraft product, it can be a consumer goods, it can be even your own personal effects and household goods, which if you think you are relocating to USA or you're coming back, still your goods have to be moved, which involves a lot of components. So the role of logistics in international trade. Next slide, please. So the logistician or the supply chain management or a freight forwarder, these are common terms which are used, interchangeable terms. Earlier they used to be called freight forwarders or transporters, then it became logistics, then now it's also called supply chain management. Supply chain management is an extension of the logistician's role in today's economy. So as you can see, there are suppliers, agricultural suppliers, raw material, power, there are manufacturers. So these goods have to be moved there. Then there are distribution centers, and then there are customers and consumers. So the point has to be noted is that each of these components may be located in different countries. To give you an example, the iron ore may be mined in Australia. The steel is manufactured in China. The final steel sheets are coming to India, where they are made into cars in Chennai. And these cars are exported to Africa. So you can see the entire link, the connection has to be maintained from the origin of the raw material till the final destination. This is why logistics becomes a very critical and a very important part of the entire economy, not just because of the cost, not just because of the physical movement, but also of the costs involved. Physical movement is one challenge. Yes, goods, different types of goods have to be moved in different modes to different parts of the world, but also the costs are involved. As you can see here, material cost is one and manufacturing cost is one. But the rest of it, transportation, either by air or by sea, domestic, overseas, inventory holding, transportation and redistribution, compounds for almost 20 to 25% of a product cost. If a product is sold anywhere in the world, you can be sure that 20 to 25% of the cost of that product is the logistics cost. So you can imagine the scope for improvement in efficiency, improvement in logistics will result in improvement in savings and costs for the company and for the consumer. So as you saw earlier, for an importer and an exporter, running this import-export business can be quite complicated because of the various components involved. Yeah. So now in logistics, what are the main components of a logistics professional and of a logistics practitioner and of a logistics or a supply chain company in the global economy? So we need to understand the economics of global trade. As you know, there are a lot of first part of it shows the costs. So we have, of course, transportation costs is definite, is finite depending on what you move, how much volume you are moving, what is the commodity you are moving, and from where to where, the distance, what you are moving. Yes. But there are other costs also which a prudent logistician and a prudent supply chain management professional will take into consideration, which are tariff and non-tariff costs, which, as I mentioned earlier, there are customs duties, there are trade barriers, there are customs duty concessions. So each country has its own agreement with another country. We'll come to that later. And of course, the cost of transaction and time. As you all know, many goods are very time sensitive. Not just perishable goods, not just fruits and vegetables or agriculture products, but even engineering components, electronic goods are now very, very time sensitive. A product, say launched or manufactured or invented or created just today or yesterday in the world, somewhere, some corner of the world, needs to be available maybe in the next 2 days in any part of the world. Otherwise, the usefulness is lost. Somebody else is going to steal that advantage. So the importance of time plays a very important role in international logistics. Even things like garments, if a certain product is ready for sale for Diwali, it should be available in the store, say 5 days or 1 week or 10 days, 15 days before Diwali. There's no point in it coming on the day of Diwali or 2 days later. The value is lost. Similarly, transaction costs. So these are all the various costs which a supply chain management professional or a logistics professional must keep in mind when advising or when doing this service to an importer or an exporter. The other part of the slide shows the kind of agreements and trading blocks which we have in the world today. WTO, of course, the World Trade Organization, has all countries as its members, and they sit down and work out means of providing fair, equal, level playing field for all economies or all countries around the world, irrespective of where they are located or what type of an economy it is. However, there are certain situations where a country may need some particular assistance, some particular type of assistance. due to geopolitical scenario. So there we have regional local agreements like GATT, like SPARC, like ASEAN, and so many other BRICS, and so many other associations or group of countries are formed where we have trade. Like for example, we have a free trade agreement with Sri Lanka, or we may have a free trade agreement with Bangladesh. So certain products, goods and services can be exchanged between these two neighboring countries at a lesser rate of duty with freer barriers or fewer barriers, so that we have more economic activity among this region. The certain countries may impose stiffer tariffs on our products just to keep us out, which is also possible. So we have these agreements and tariffs, and members of WTO and other free trade agreement countries, which we have to keep in mind while planning a logistics move. Certain products are not allowed in certain countries. Certain countries, they, impose high tariff duties on certain products from India, say for example, or certain countries allow us to import, and certain countries impose restrictions on quantity and volumes of what products can be imported. So these are points which a logistician has to keep in mind. So we also need to know the geography of the world, which plays an important factor in a logistician. A product may be very in high demand in South America. You are making it very reasonably cost here. But unfortunately, you need to factor in the geography, how far it is, how long will it take to reach that country, what will be the costs involved to reach that country, not just the carrying cost, the transport cost, but also tariffs and other costs which will be involved, packing, etc., to ensure that whether it will reach there for it to be in demand or viable proposition to be sold in that particular country. So wide knowledge of geography and the common trade flows, how the general trade between international economy works. What are the trade routes? What are the prominent products moving from one country to another? For example, we move a lot of oil or petroleum products from the Gulf to India. In return, what we export to them, what is in high demand in Africa or in Europe or in the United States. What is the product which moves there, which can be moved there, which is in demand there in an economical manner, in an efficient manner. So this is a very vital aspect of the logistician's knowledge and skills, geography, and the trading blocks with which we are involved in. Next slide, please. Another important factor which a logistician should know is the foreign trade policy of the country. For example, in India, we have an import trade policy which is framed by the government. This Ministry of Commerce frames this as an import policy. Normally, it is done for a 5-year period. This is a very exhaustive literature, a book like equal to the income, much more than any other law or rule passed in the country every year. This consists the policy, the various decisions taken by the government in the field of foreign trade. So what are the products which we can export? What are the concessions? What are the benefits? What are the incentives the government gives to people who produce and export? What are the export obligations for an importer? So if an importer wants to import capital goods for manufacture of export goods, there are certain conditions. There are certain products which are restricted, which are totally banned for import into India. It may be freely available in any other country, in any other part of the world. But our import policy bans. There are 3-4 types of categories. One is banned, one is restricted, one is permitted with certain conditions, and one is freely available. So each of these have different components. Is an exhaustive literature which all logisticians should know. Now it is merged with which is called an international trade system, which is an harmonized system of nomenclature. It's called HSN, which is called the International Trade, ITC, HSN, which gives an 8-digit number for every product which you can think of, right from animals to the most sophisticated manufactured product is given an 8-digit trading number. And with that number, you can identify whether a product is freely importable, is banned, is restricted, or can be exported, or in case of export, is there any restrictions on the export? Is there any incentive on the export? So these are the main and important factor which a logistician should know, because an importer or an exporter may have an idea, may know that he has a good product which he has to sell, or there is a good product available in some part of the world which he wants to bring and sell here. But the logistician or the supply chain professional should address this issue also, apart from the first earlier two issues, the foreign trade policy, the policy of the government which permits or restricts products from being imported or exported. Another important factor is customs rules and regulations. These are customs duties. So you would have been, most of you will be familiar with the customs at any international airport or seaport. There are customs officials waiting there to check your bags, but this is just for people who travel. But for goods also, each product, each and every consignment of goods which come into the country or go out of the country has to be screened and passed by the customs. There is no exemption for anybody. All the goods have to be transported only after clearance by customs. The customs again is ruled by the Government of India Customs Act and also the Customs Tariff Act. This tariff is normally changed or announced during the budget at every financial year beginning. And the most important things are the import customs duties which are imposed on imported goods which we import or we want to import from any part of the world. Similarly, the customs also acts an export duty or an export incentive for products which you want to export from your country to any other country. Also, the customs imposes or enforces the rules and laws of various other departments, which may include the narcotics control, which may include wildlife product control, which may include drug control, and so many other plant quarantine, so many other agencies which impose the laws or have regulations. These are enforced by the customs, because you take a product and you're going to export it out of Chennai or go to take it to the airport. They are going to check what is the product, what is the duty payable, whether it's importable or exportable, and what is the any other restrictions or law to be followed in this regard. So this is another important, the fourth and more important part of the logistician's role in export and import trade or international trade. Next, please. The fifth important, transport selection and utilization. So you know that there are primarily 3 or 4 modes of transport which we use: international, domestic to a certain extent, and international it is by air, by sea, by road to some extent, by rail not much, very minor extent. So the bulk of the movement is done by air cargo and sea cargo. So we have many international airports and seaports in India, and all the goods which we import or export pass through these seaports and airports. So what are the factors which we keep into account when we need to select which mode of transport we will use? Will be the transportation cost, the transit time, the reliability, capability, accessibility, and security. So these are all self-explanatory terms. Cost, of course, you know, air freight will be 5 times, 6 times more costlier than sea freight. But whether the product depends or requires to be transported, it is urgently required, or is perishable in nature, or a high value in nature, you may choose air transport over sea transport. Transit time, again the same thing. Air transport may reach from Chennai or India to USA in 2 days or 3 maximum. By ocean, it may take 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So it's more than a month. Reliability, again, the consistency of the transit time. If you're having a scheduled airliner, you know that this is going to go on this flight from here to there and from there to there. That's fine. So that is the reliability. Capability is, of course, the ability to provide the facility required to transport that particular type of goods. So it can be perishable goods, it can be bulk goods, liquid products, sensitive products. So things like that, we need to check the capability of the carrier before we use that mode of transport. Accessibility, again, as you can see, is the whether the carrier can reach that particular place. So you may choose air cargo because it's efficient, but if your end point is inland or is situated in some remote place, then whether that mode of transport is accessible to that area. And of course, security, how safe the goods will be, how in undamaged condition the goods will reach when they reach a final destination. So these are the main factors which we use in logistics international trade, which we need to know. The fifth is transport selection and utilization. The next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier also, road transport is limited to these kind of things. Rail transport is ideal for long distances, and heavy goods is environmental friendly, cost is less, but the connectivity is not so much as in air and road transport. Next, please. So air transport, fast and safe, but it's expensive. Typically, that's the most. The sea transport is very less expensive, is ideal for bulk and heavy goods, but it's a long lead time. Next slide. So these are the different modes of transport which we select as a logistician. Next slide. So as an international logistics provider, we have seen what are the components of logistics trade, the 5 most important things. And now we provide, as an international logistics provider or a supply chain professional or a supply chain company, you have to take in charge of all these factors, right from origin to destination, from the manufacturer to the end user. So which the major roles, as I said, will include customs clearance. As a licensed customs broker, you need to know the import-export policy, the customs act, the customs rules, the customs tariff, and the allied acts and rules which apply to import and export of goods. Logistics, as I said, we need to provide the different types of transportation, whatever the 3-4 main types of transport we use, either on our own or we utilize the services of other standalone transport companies or shipping lines or airlines to move these goods. And freight forwarding. So the entire process of accumulating these goods, doing the customs clearance, passing through all the borders, handing over to the airline, and again at the other end ensuring that these goods are moved, cleared and delivered to the end user are the major role of an international logistics service provider. Next, please. So what are the competencies? An international logistics service professional should know almost everything of what I mentioned throughout this whole seminar. You should know business environment, what are the current trends, what's happening in China, what's happening in the other parts of the world, where are the likely issues going to come up, where there is likely to be slowdown, where there is likely to be increase. International trade documentation and laws. There are so many documentation, as I mentioned earlier. Each of these components can be handled as a separate webinar for a full session by itself. International trade documentation, letter of credit, bill of lading, airway bill, letter of exchange, commercial invoice, certificate of origin. Each of these are many of documents which you will need to provide or need to create for a smooth transit of goods, licenses, permits, things like that. So this is another important aspect of a competency an international logistics professional should know. Geography, as I told you, you should know world geography and also a little bit of inner geography of your own country or the country to which you're assisting the exporter to reach, because certain factors may come into play which may drastically change the cost or the transit time if you don't know clearly where the destination is. Shipping and air freight practices, this is another vital factor which a competency which you should have, which means how to pack goods, what kind of goods can be carried by what kind of mode of transport, what are the standard methods of packing, what are the international rules and regulations regarding to packing and loading of cargo on aircraft and on ship, and the documentation the shipping lines require, the airlines require for carriage of goods, what are their liabilities and duties. Of course, as I said, customs and statutory rules and regulations which apply to your own country as well as the country to which you are exporting or importing from. what is the tariffs, non-tariffs, restrictions, etc. And of course, now of late, the use of digital platforms. This has become very, very vital in the current scenario over the past few years. Customs authorities in India, the government of India, and which is keeping up with practices all around the world, has almost completely digitized the process of filing documents and obtaining release, paying customs duty, and completing formalities for import and export trade. There's a lot of software available. The government also uses a lot of software. So practically, they are moving to a totally paperless and a totally digital platform for international transactions. So this is another key competency an international logistics professional should have. Next slide, please. So the future. So as you know, the role we are to deliver products and services at the right time, at the right place, at the right cost, and the right quantity and quality is the heart of supply chain management. In any industry, any type of commerce, be it from agriculture to medical or to goods need to be produced, stored, and dispatched. So the efficient and effective management is very critical in the current and future business scenario. So with the growth of global marketplace, with the growth dynamic changes, effective and efficient supply chain processes has become more important. So we as logisticians and logistics professionals need to cope up, identify these challenges and move ahead. Next slide. So this is a slightly outdated data, but still it projects the growth of job opportunities till 2022. 85% of new jobs will be in these occupation categories, and you see somewhere in between is logistics. Actually, this would change because the certain industries like hospitality, etc., may be on the downslide because of the current scenario of the post-COVID situation. So there will be more importance and demand and prospects for logistics professionals, especially in the current scenario. It's exciting times ahead for all of us, and we sure look forward to more number of people moving in to this area, which is a very vital and critical area and a very interesting area of the global economy and of the future of any professional. Next, please. So thank you very much. I hope this was useful, informative, and I was able to share some of my knowledge and experience with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was wonderful. I now request Yahya, sir, to take care of the Q&A session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, overview of logistics and international trade. Now here I'm with the question answers. On behalf of the questions, I'll be posting some questions. So here's my first question. How to become a logistician and what are the courses to be studied to become a logistician?
So at the undergraduate level, there is no particular course at the moment exclusively for logistics professionals. A basic degree in commerce or economics or science, anything is sufficient. But there are postgraduate programs, postgraduate diplomas offered by universities and institutions in logistics, in business logistics and supply chain management, which will add to your basic knowledge and skills. Some of these institutions include the School of Business Logistics and Indian Institute of Logistics, and a few other colleges offer a specialization in logistics, which is ideal if you do it after a basic undergrad degree in commerce or any other subject for that matter, because the application and the utilization of these skills is across technology, is across your basic degree. So even if you have an engineering degree, you will need to know logistics if you're going to be in a production unit or in a factory which produces certain goods. So this is across borders. So there is no restriction on who can become a logistics professional. The scope is open to anybody. Basic fundamental undergrad degree is sufficient, but a specialization There are postgraduate diplomas, short-term as well as long-term. Plus, of course, the trade bodies also offer courses like the International Air Transport Organization. IATA offers courses in air cargo. Similarly, there's Chartered Institute of Transport and Logistics, Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers. So there are many institutions like that which are professional bodies which offer courses in each specific area. As far as customs rules and regulations are concerned and import-export policy, it's widely known and gained out of by experience. But some of these institutes and certain, as I said, trade bodies like the Chamber of Commerce or the Customs Brokers Association offer some short-term programs in customs rules, customs act, certain things like that, which help you qualify, because to be a customs broker, you need to qualify for an exam which will test your knowledge and understanding of the Customs Act and the allied acts.
Thank you, sir.
There's somebody in the chat. Can I answer those questions first, or?
Yes, sir. I'll be consolidating and I'll be asking the questions.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
The next question: what is the impact of coronavirus pandemic on global trade?
Okay, so this is something which everybody is speculating about, because unless this scenario, the situation is over, we really won't know what's next. But for now, we know that as far as trade is concerned, the restrictions or the slowdown or the factors which have affected the normal life has not affected the trade per se. It is not that there is a restriction on movement of goods from one country to another because of COVID, or some imports are banned, because it's not because of that. It's because the hinterland, the consumers, the consuming countries or the producing countries are unable to reach or unable to consume those products. For example, if I want to send garments to the USA, it is not that it's because the shops there are not open. They are under lockdown. There are no consumers buying the goods. Similarly, if I want to produce and export garments from India, I am not able to do because the factories are not functioning, the labor is not available. So the logistics sector as such has not been physically affected. But yes, there has been slowdown, there has been a drastic drop in the volumes which have gone down because of the other reasons. So this has happened earlier in many cases for a brief period, for extended periods, due to so many other reasons, political reasons, due to war situations, due to climatic conditions and things like that, and it has recovered quickly. This time it has taken a longer time. It is now 6 months since this downtrend has happened. But people still need goods. They are still handling imports. Exports are still going on. It will continue to happen. The blip will be for a short while, but it will pick up once the economies of the other countries or the countries around the world will improve. I suppose that answers the question. The COVID is going to be a small blip. There's going to be a small change in a small dip in the volumes which are being handled right now. But that's not because of the logistics failure or the logistics or the vessel movement or ship movement or cargo movement being affected. It is only because there is the demand on the other side has dropped, or they are not accessible for the general public or the users.
Thank you, sir. The next question: as a logistic professional, how do you come to know the latest international trade agreements and WTO rules and restrictions?
So these rules and restrictions are published by the international bodies. Almost all logisticians, freight forwarders are members of these bodies, either directly or indirectly through their local associations. And the government of India also releases these bulletins on almost whenever these kind of restrictions or situations or policy changes are announced. Of course, it is in our better interest to stay abreast now with the electronic media and access to the internet and subscription to various foreign or international organizations. We get these notifications well in advance. And as I said, also the local trade bodies. So we have members of Chamber of Commerce or Customs Brokers Association or the Shipping Line Association or the Air Cargo Associations. So they will communicate these latest changes in their country or in the world, in different parts of the world to us over by circulars or by emails or by bulletins. Also, I told you that we use a lot of software for this process of booking cargo to clearing through customs and export-import policy. So these software companies also keep their programs or their applications updated from time to time. If there is a exchange rate fluctuations are very common. So there's a change in exchange rate between dollar and India 2 days ago or even just this morning. Immediately it will reflect in our system which we are processing, which we will update it, and it will be the latest exchange rate will be applied. This applies for almost all of the rules and regulations. An importer or an exporter may not have access to all this, so it is the logistician's role to keep them also updated with the latest provisions and the regulations.
Sir, next question. Sir, we have heard that Singapore is a logistic hub.
Correct.
Singapore is a logistic hub, and why it is so called?
Well, Singapore primarily basically for two reasons. It is a hub for logistics because Singapore by itself as a nation is a small country. There's not much scope for consumption or production there. But they realized this well ahead, quite much, many years earlier, that they as a country are very small. They can't produce much. They can't consume much too. But what else they can offer? They've got a very critical location in the world trade. If you see the world map, if one of these slides you would have seen, Singapore is placed critically just at the junction of the entire, almost the Far East and the Middle East and the West. So the trade route of the trade flows which you saw, processes of goods moving from one country to the other, 90% of the trade will have to pass through that piece of land or water. So from India, from the Gulf, from Africa, from the Indian Ocean, from Indian Ocean countries, from the Bay of Bengal countries, anything proceeding towards the Far East, China, Korea, Vietnam, Bangkok, Thailand, Japan, Australia, everything, all goods have to pass through that route. So they created so then they decided that we will, instead of being a consumer or a producer, we will be a transit point. So they took that locational advantage and built an infrastructure and rules and regulations around it to cater to this kind of an international traffic. So there is what we call as a hub and spoke system in logistics. So it became a logistics hub. You can send a lot of goods from all parts of the Middle East and the Far East and India. India and other countries to Asia to Singapore, and from there it is distributed to all other parts of the world, the other parts. Similarly on the reverse direction. So Singapore has created an infrastructure utilizing their logistics advantage. They created the rules and regulations also to facilitate and to do this efficiently and economically, which is one of the biggest reasons for the success of Singapore as interport.
Thank you, sir. The next question, how to get import-export license? And is it true that import-export license fees is very meager amount, but it is costlier for a person for getting the import-export license?
See, over the years, as I told you, government has also moved towards a digital platform. Getting an import-export code number, which is one aspect of that, is very easy. It's an online process. It costs about 1,000 rupees only. But of course, the reasons why there are some restrictions on this or they are very stringent on this this can be misused by people for various other nefarious activities, including importing or exporting of contraband goods. So the government needs to know exactly who you are, what is your role, what is the background before giving you an import-export code number. Import-export license is also largely on a digital platform now, and I don't see any reason why the costs or the process cost, if that's what you're referring to, should be high at all. It's pretty transparent. The rules and regulations are pretty clear. It's available in public domain, and if required, you can take the assistance of a consultant or a professional to help you with this. But by and large, it is not expensive, or it's not very restrictive in nature. There are controls for the reasons why what I mentioned, that they need to know who exactly you are and what's your reason and what's the nature of your industry or activity to give you the license. But it's all transparent.
Thank you, sir. The next question is regarding Sedu Samudram Shipping Canal project. If it is implemented, how much the India will get benefit out of it?
So I have okay. Sedu Samudram project was, in my opinion, and in general opinion in our circles, is that it's not a viable project at all. There are many reasons for this. It's a long drawn story, but the India will not benefit much. Neither will anybody benefit by this project at all. It's ill-conceived. I don't think it has any technical or financial or any other practical advantage whatsoever. It is trying to cut corners or trying to find a route through a very restrictive area at great environmental costs and great restrictive costs with the huge impact on the environment and everything, for a very, very meager advantage for a very, very small sector of users. So it was not going to benefit anybody for that matter, let alone India. So there is absolutely no rationale behind putting so much money or trying to go ahead with the Setu Samudram project.
Thank you, sir. The next question, is there any change in the foreign trade policy of India after this situation?
You mean the COVID situation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, COVID situation, there is no fundamentally 95% there is no change in the foreign trade policy. Only changes are that they have permitted free importability without any customs duty on products and goods which are required for tackling the COVID crisis, which include PPE equipment, ventilators, and drugs and pharmaceutical products, and maybe vaccines and all that, which are testing kits, things like that, which are required. These have been allowed free of customs duty and freely importable, which were earlier subject to certain licensing and other regulations. They have allowed this to be imported firstly free of duty, and any testing or licensing regulations will be done post-import. So you can import the goods, you can start using them because it's an emergency situation, and the safety and the viability or the conformity of these products will be tested parallelly, so that the goods are not held up for this kind of regulations or restrictions. So the import of equipment, consumables, personal protective equipment, drugs and pharmaceuticals, testing kits, etc., for tackling the coronavirus crisis has been liberalized and freed up. Other than that, there is no other specific restriction or change in the import-export policy as far as foreign trade is concerned in India. If you are referring to the China crisis, yes, there is some sort of caution which is being enforced. So goods from China are being there is no official restriction or ban or anything like that, but the goods imported from China are being looked at more carefully, are being scrutinized more in detail, so that as a precautionary measures so that there is no untoward incident happening from this trade sector.
Thank you, sir. The next question: what are the job opportunities available for commerce graduate in logistic industry?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, any graduate, and especially a commerce graduate with the business background of understanding of trade and commerce, has very wide potential, has great potential in the logistics industry. Not only as in a supply chain and a logistics professional, professionally standalone logistics or supply chain management company, but also with companies which are engaged in international trade, which includes manufacturers, exporters, and importers. The ideal scenario will be expanding the knowledge of international trade laws, international trade practices, carriage of goods, customs, and all these five or six factors which I mentioned earlier in my presentation. And the sky is the limit, because as I mentioned earlier, though the other sectors or any other sector might have longer trade impacts, are affected by various other conditions, international trade is not going to go away. It has been there, as I mentioned, from ancient days, and is going to be there for many, many more years to come. And to handle this, we need, especially with the advent of digital platforms, more efficiency, more capabilities, and more smoother operations. There is a lot of scope for logistics professionals. As I mentioned, two things. One is the logistics cost component is almost close to 20% of the cost of any product. So imagine the scope of reduction and the scope of improvement and scope of making it more efficient. That is one area which you can work on. The second thing is the government is also working at reducing the transaction costs in logistics. In fact, 2 days ago, there was a statement by a senior official of the minister from Department of Commerce, Ministry of Commerce. They are removing bottlenecks. The GST implication was one, removing of bottlenecks within India to ease out movement of goods by road and by rail. Dynamic progress is being made in all these sectors. You might have seen, you know already, the Golden Quadrilateral, the highways. Big expansion is going on in ports and airports. Privatization of ports and airports is a big major activity. So this is all being done with the view that over the next many years, international trade is going to improve. It's going to increase exponentially, and for that we need professionals in that area. So if you qualify yourself, have the competencies, definitely you have a very bright future.
Thank you, sir. The next question: is there any internship opportunity for our college students?
Yes, definitely there are internship opportunities, short-term, part-time, whatever suits you. There are companies, including my company, which can offer you internships, which will be basically on-the-job training, which will include field work as well as study office work, which will expose you to the real life situations of international trade. Importers and exporters are there, air cargo agents, shipping companies, shipping agents, transport companies, freight forwarders, custom house agents. All of these people will definitely make use of interns and will be ready to share their knowledge and give you whatever inputs you require. Definitely there is potential.
Thank you so much, sir. The last question, sir, can you share your experience and journey towards the logistics?
My experience, well, I have close to 30 years experience handling everything, right from the fundamental movement of goods by road, which means operating a truck, going to exporters and importers, picking up goods, moving it to the port, and then expanding, because this field is so interesting and so vibrant that you have to deal with all type of goods, all type of services. So one day you'll be handling a garment, the next day you will be handling a very high piece of machinery, the third you will be handling concentrated sulfuric acid, the fourth day you will be handling palm oil, you will be handling cotton, raw cotton. So machinery, anything and everything. So each has its own intrinsic interests, interesting prospects are there to learn something more every time, every day. The equipment which is being imported will come the latest. So you have to see what are the specifications, where it is permitted, how it is permitted, what are the duties applicable, how to efficiently handle these goods, make sure that so you play a very key role in the total activity, economic activity of any business, and that gives you a lot of satisfaction when they say that yes, we handle cut flowers for exports of roses from different parts of India, from Bangalore, Hosur area to Netherlands. These have to be moved from the farm to the airport to be loaded and to the destination within a few hours time, and it has to go because the next day morning it is there at the auction house, and if it's late by a few hours, your flowers are not sold, all your effort goes waste. Similarly for like pharmaceutical products or life-saving drugs which we import from many countries for hospital use, they have to be transported in ice, in dry ice, from Sweden or from United States to a hospital in Madurai. How will you do it? So you have to engage yourself in all these things, which is what makes it more interesting, exciting. Every day is different. Every consignment is different. Every opportunity gives you an opportunity to learn and stay abreast with the activities, which is what makes it more interesting, which keeps it dynamic, which keeps it interesting. So that is the my experience in this field. So that has been it's been a wonderful journey of learning, of continuing to learn, and continuing to serve the people who need our services.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful presentation and patiently answering all our students and participants' questions. Now, I would like to call our principal, sir, for the rest of the session. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. I think your topic was so elaborate. I think the logistic is having a multifunctional process. So I think you made it very clear what are the various processes, how one can get involved, right, to complete the transaction through the logistic about. I think it's quite interesting field as well. So a small request from our side, sir. I think our students are doing that final year now. I think we can able to just seek your help of giving some kind of internship so that they learn more about logistics from people like you with a high amount of experience. So I would like to have that involvement of your expertise to give a kind of internship to our college students, couple of students at least.
Yeah, sure, we can offer. And of course, this current scenario, we are all staying isolated. There is no access to the office at the moment. But hopefully, when it reopens, we can physically meet. I can also meet your students for a face-to-face discussion, or anybody who's interested. You can share my email, and they can send me details of who is interested. And then, even if it is not office work, we can use them for field work also, which we can expose them to the realities, real situations.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely, we will invite you to a college so that we can have a one-to-one discussion with our students. Probably after things are becoming normal, then we can even work out about the internship, because this field visit or your seeing that office and other organization structure will be more valuable for our students to learn better. So the theoretical knowledge alone will not going to help them, but
Correct, yes.
they get some exposure. Yes, so that will help them a lot, sir.
Yeah, because of course now there is a lot of material available as well as training courses available. When I entered the industry, there was no such thing. So The very first day, I just had to walk into the harbor and see the goods being unloaded, what is happening, how the cranes are operated, how the labor handles the goods. So we learned everything from the field, and then we started reading the books and things like that. So it's a good place to start if we start with field work. Of course, now a lot of material is available online as well as books are available. I can give you suggestions on what to read up as to start with, so that they can familiarize themselves, and then it will be a different type of integration of both field work as well as theoretical knowledge.
Exactly, sir. So once the business is made open to the global level, like after the 1991, the globalization concept, the logistic started becoming more crucial for many of the business organizations.
Exactly.
So thanks to that LPG for the government of India, they introduced that liberalization, privatization, globalization. The globalization concept has given the market as though it's a global, but we can do it locally and see to that we reach out to every corner of the world about it. That is possible only by way of this proper logistic process. I think you made it very clear, very elaborate during your presentation how the logistic works at a larger angle and through various transport process. I think the students would have got a very good knowledge about what the logistic means and how it works at the international scenario. So thank you so much, sir, for your elaborate explanation. I think now it's an eye opener to many of our students even to step into the field of logistics because the scope and importance are very high in this area of it. Now I just hand over the session to the professor to give the vote of thanks. Over to Professor Selvi. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Right.
Thank you, Principal Sir.
Yes.
On behalf of the management, principal, and our colleagues, staff members, and our students, I take immense pleasure to propose vote of thanks to Mr. Kannan, sir. Sir, you have clearly explained our students the international growth from the earliest century till now in India and wider market available for the supply chain management industry in the logistic area and competencies of international logistics professionals. What are all the competencies needed for that professionals in a clear manner? And what is the future of the logistics and career opportunities available for the students? That is 85% of jobs available for the students in the logistics by the year 2022. It is a very big eye opener for our students in the logistics fields. What are all the things they have to equip themselves to become a logisticians, and how the Singapore has made its opportunities and made as a big logistics hub. Likewise, our students will also be motivated and take this as a motivational speech and inculcate and study the things which needed for logistics and will make India as a big logistics hub, sir. Thank you for your guidance, and by sharing your experience, our students will become a logistician as like you, sir. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, Prakash.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That was wonderful to know about the operations behind logistics, because many of us know the port trust is there, ports are there in the cities, but we don't know what's the operations that has been carried out behind that. And you have been explaining that clearly from the basic level. So on behalf of the college, we want to thank you for the clear explanation about what's happening in the industry in the local level and the global level. Thank you so much, sir. Once the normalcy returns, we wish to have you at our college, sir, having a one-to-one session, interactive session with our students at the college. So on behalf of the management, principal, sir, and the Department of Commerce and the other departments, I thank you very much for presenting this wonderful webinar, sir. So, dear attendees, that was Mr. Kannan, sir, Director, Vistas Shipping Services Private Limited, on role of logistics in a global perspective. So stay tuned with us for more exciting and inspiring webinars to come. Stay connected with our website, www.avichicollege.edu.in, and follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Avichi College. Stay safe, stay indoors. More power to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
and best wishes to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.